just your ward ones or not.
Oh, and Holly talked about practical ideas that have been coming out of the GMB that that haven't had any response from the leadership of the administration, and whether we could follow that up.
Danny, can I just make a suggestion that we possibly just have a very simple open letter, which isn't that radical really, but on the People's Assembly website that we can ask people to, and a range of people, anybody could just sign up for, which is very simply worded in relation to not supporting the budget.
So that's calling on our councillors to take action. Is that what you mean, John?
Calling them to vote it down.
People that people can sign up to, so people that don't agree with it, so councillors can sign up to it, but citizens can sign up to it, and it reaches in a much broader way, so it becomes sort of fairly inclusive in its approach.
So just a statement of opposition to the cuts that people can put their name to.
So the budget cuts that are coming.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Can we formally invite all the Labour councillors to the next meeting?
We did formally invite all the Labour councillors.
Can we do it again? Just keep doing it until somebody from the Labour Party turns up, and can the trade unionists perhaps through their channels, it's not just Green Party people here, it's obviously quite a few trade unionists as well. And I think the more trade unionists that turn up and the more Labour Party members turn up, the less of a Green Party meeting it becomes.
I'm a Labour Party
I think
member,
Green
so-
Party people shouldn't be kind of punished for being here en masse. We just need to make more of an effort to get trade unionists here and Labour Party members and councillors here. Social networking, to be honest, I don't know what's being done to harness social networks to get more people along and get more people aware of the issues that we're discussing. I'm personally happy to help with the social networking. I think it's a really valuable tool in this day and age. I don't know who at your end is focusing on that, but I'd just like
There's
to
been a lot of
volunteer
this
my
on
services in that,
Twitter and Facebook, but yeah, that'd be great.
But I think outreach, and inviting more people along.
So, do people feel like we want to have basically a reconvened meeting at some point? I mean, we haven't actually got very long before the budget setting meeting. Is that do we want to take up John's suggestion of putting a simple statement on the People's Assembly website and inviting all and sundry to put their names to it?
Yeah.
Does that sound like it would be a constructive action? And in particular, directly contacting councillors of all parties and asking them to make that commitment.
I mean, as a minimum, I think we do need to be turning up to the meetings that are going to be going on. You know, it's all very well, isn't it, to have an open letter or start a 38 degrees petition or, you know, whatever it is, but and to write to all our local ward councillors and all the rest of it, all of that is really effective, but actually it's all unseen. We need to get out there and stand at those meetings and stand outside the council or go in if we're allowed, whatever, if they're open, and show in number that there are people opposing it or supporting, you know, the non-voting of it, whatever stance it is we need to take at that time. But I think it would be shame within the next 3 months, which is all we've got, if all we do is a letter on the People's Assembly website and a couple of private. There aren't many of us here.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That's the reality of it. So we can all write to our ward councillors, but that's like, what, 30 letters?
Yeah. So all Brighton and Hove Council meetings are open to the public. The next time this budget will be discussed is this coming Thursday at the Policy and Resources Committee meeting, which will be at 4 o'clock, but I don't know where. Anyone know? Hove Town Hall. So if anybody has is available to go to that meeting, I think that would be a really good thing to do. But I don't think between now and next Thursday we're going to, this coming Thursday, we're going to get a thing together.
But I think those are the things that could be advertised on the social networks, on the People's Assembly website and stuff like that, to try and galvanise as many people who can go to those things.
On the budget setting meeting, we should be aiming to have a mass presence of some kind.
People won't look at the council website to find those meetings themselves. It's not easy to do, is it? It needs to be really easy for people to do.
But we should. So I think we should try and.
The Argus right now are really, really, really happy to slag off the budget. The Argus are renowned for it being very difficult to get stuff in there unless it meets with what they want. So now is the time for actually to be doing stuff, because they'll happily come on board, because they're gleeful about their little leak, aren't they?
Is there a mood that people want to do something quite drastic at the budget setting meeting? Is that the kind of mood of the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that what we need to do is perhaps think further about what that is precisely. I don't know, unless someone's got a definite proposal. Andy.
I was only going to second your suggestion.
Okay.
Think about it.
So should we call, I don't know, what should we do? Yeah.
Unison, normally we have demonstrated outside the policy and resources meetings and various other council meetings. I don't know if anything's planned.
We haven't planned anything for this
It's
Thursday.
unusual because we normally do, don't we?
Yeah.
We're there, whatever.
For whatever reason, we haven't done it this time.
This is, of course, in no sense a criticism, it really isn't, but it's, I think, a useful reflection. At last year's council budget setting meeting, I was a councillor who voted against it. There was a unison demonstration outside the town hall at the time. And I remember going up to one of the people taking part in that demonstration, someone who isn't here today. So what do you want me to do as a councillor with a vote in there? And they said, oh, I don't know, you're just demonstrating against the cuts. And I said, well, should I vote? What should I do? I'm not planning on voting for the cuts. And they said, well, I don't know, we're just here to demonstrate against the cuts. And I think I'd say that not as a criticism, but in terms of to illustrate a point about going forward, what we need on budget council is something that is going to, because let's face it, that is a council meeting and it doesn't include everyone as having direct voting power. If you like, maybe it would be better if it did, but nonetheless it doesn't. So what that's got to be about is empowering the councillors who are there to feel supported in decisions they take about opposing the cuts. It is, and I'm not saying this in a kind of, you know, tug the heartstrings way, it's actually very hard to say to your fellow group colleagues, I'm not going to vote for the budget that you have worked for months to produce, unless there are lots of people saying, we support you, this is what we want you to do. And that is the voice that we have all got to be able to hear on February the 27th.
Okay. John and then Holly.
Yeah, my sense of local politics is a little like my sense about national politics, is that people are actually quite apathetic. They are upset, if you like, about what's going on, but they don't know what to do. And I think one of the things that's been powerful in the meeting today is that the cuts are going to come down on the most vulnerable people in society, whom we never really hear from. And I think the point about social media, and YouTube in particular, allows those people suddenly to be there. And when you hear those voices and what they say, and then how those cuts will affect them, I think then you will get more of the public on your side for actions that people will see as, oh, that's the old left tactic. We've seen all that. It didn't do anything in the 60s, it didn't do anything in the 70s, it's not going to do anything now. And I think to utilise these technologies and these tactics are going to be, with these, shall we say, more traditional tactics, are going to be more effective than thinking, you know, actions and picketing and demonstrations are going to be the sole tactic. I'm sure people aren't thinking like that, but I just wanted to put that out there and make sure those voices in particular are very much the focus of what it's about, because then people will relate to it. My brother's like that, my uncle is suffering, my sister, my cousin, and then they will get more on board.
Holly.
I just wondered if maybe, I mean, you know, I'm happy to rally all the troops, everyone from work and whatever, to come to a budget meeting and stuff, but I wondered if maybe, like, what I think us just meaning, you know, anti-austerity people generally, not any particular party or union or whatever, like, is we're so often like the anti-brigade, like, you know, we're anti-austerity, we're anti-this, we're anti-that, we're anti-cuts, we're anti, like, whatever. Like, what we're really bad at doing is advocating what we're actually for and having like a positive spin on something rather than just like a reactive anti-everything. And I wondered if, just to kind of change the narrative a bit, what might actually be more constructive is rather than just, you know, Unison members and whoever else standing outside the town hall going, we're anti-cuts or whatever, is actually if we all have like a kind of, I don't know, if we all have a sign that says like, we will support councillors who vote against this, we will work with you to come up with alternative solutions or whatever, and have like a supportive demo rather than like an anti-demo, do you know what I mean? Like saying, actually, we're here to support all those councillors who don't agree with what's happening and are willing to have conversations about what we can do instead. Like, and we're here to wave flags and have like balloons and I don't know, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like to make it a supportive thing, like, and have open dialogue about it rather than just being like, we oppose you. What do you want instead? Don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, and that's part of building that solidarity that we're talking do we want to call another meeting before then that is about planning for that action? Yeah? Yeah.
My honest opinion is that the lady who spoke about the working parties would be very useful, because I think
Okay.
then people would feel there would be direction and traction
Yep.
coming from that, and that would give empowerment and focus to what's been talked about today.
Okay, we've got 15 minutes.
Can I just say, adding on to that, like a working party, something that is, you know, you talk about social media and that's fine, but what you've got to remember is actually that the people that are being hit hardest by these cuts don't have the support to access social media. They don't have a voice of their own. People with learning difficulties generally don't have a voice from within that community of their own independently. They rely on advocacy, they rely on support workers, family members to be speaking for them usually. It's very unlikely and unusual to get members in a meeting like this, like you turned up tonight,
Yeah.
which is a totally inaccessible meeting to the people that are here. But they're here because these affect them. So, you know, part of any sort of outreach or whatever has a long way to go to try and actually help the people that this budget is going to affect, because the elderly in rest homes and all the rest of it, they're not silver surfers. You know, these are people who don't have access to those sorts of things, and they rely on organisations like mine or people like yourselves to actually bring them and involve them in.
What Carly suggested was 3 working groups. One on unions and council workers, one for councillors and one for public. Can we, I mean, I don't think working groups have to be very big. Can we have kind of 4 or 5 people to take ideas, go away and come back to a bigger meeting with some ideas on each of those things, what we can actually do?
Can I
You
just
say
say
what they are
your social media working group as well?
I think social media is a tool rather than a, you know, it's like everybody's got to use social media, aren't they?
Yeah, but the argument would be that if we act coherently and set up a team whose specific job is to use social media to reach out to new people, like dealing more with the internal infrastructure and making sure that our internal infrastructure is effective and as efficient as possible, then you're going to bring more people in, basically, which should be, I would have thought, an immediate priority. And I haven't looked at your website yet, but having an online forum, for example.
Yeah, there
on
is
your
an online
website.
forum on our website.
There is already,
Yeah,
is there?
yeah.
Is there a
We've got
Facebook?
quite an active Twitter account and Facebook page.
But he's offering.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying go away, but I'm just saying in terms of
Putting more
this,
energy and resources into social media is going to have
please,
an amplifying
I would
effect.
really appreciate that because I'm doing it all. But, yeah.
Well,
Okay, so can people form themselves into working groups? Go
Can you say what they are again?
council workers are over there. You're over there.
Can you just
Identify yourselves now.
I just want to know, can you please explain what the benefit or what the purpose of these working
Yeah.
groups is? Because
Yeah.
because I'm not entirely sure that there's a benefit to just having council workers all together in a group talking about
No.
what's going to be great.
The purpose, I think, what Carly suggested was that people should get together in small groups just because we're running out of time and it's easier to discuss, and go away and come back to a bigger meeting with proposals, definite proposals, proposed actions.
But the fact of the matter is that you are within that going to then have a group of people who are maybe trade unionists and council workers who are very gifted at doing that, and a group of people who are not involved in any political affiliation who are not very gifted at doing that.
Well, that's
And
okay.
it's
'cause
about, actually, isn't this whole thing about inclusion for
Yeah.
everybody? What's the
No,
point?
I mean,
Why
I think
not
the
have working
people-
groups based on things that you want to achieve?
I think the point was...
Can you also have working groups on separate parts of the budget?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, exactly, Rohan, just things about what you want to achieve. Do you want to achieve getting more people involved? That's a
Yeah,
working
I
group.
think
Do you
that's
want to ensure
basically-
you've got social media? That's a working
I
group.
think that the purpose of all the working groups is about getting more people involved. So that was the purpose of dividing it up by different
Yeah,
people, is what the different people can do.
I see less relevance in that.
I think, if I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I think what you're saying is, rather than it being a group of council workers, can it be a group of people to talk about what trade union actions might
Yeah,
help.
absolutely.
And then anyone can go to it, so you don't actually
Yeah.
have to be the council worker
Yeah.
to go to it. Sort of
Yeah,
thing.
sorry,
So if we
that
see,
is
no,
what I
that's fine,
meant,
but if
yeah.
we interpret it in that way,
Yeah.
I think people feel then they can join whatever group they want.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it's about what council workers can do, what members of the public can do, and what councillors can do.
Can I just,
Andy?
sorry, just to say, I think, in order to kind of maybe just answer the concerns that's been raised, I think what a group, for example, of council workers and trade unions generally can bring to this, one of the things we could bring to it, for example, is we can bring examples of what's actually happening on the ground
Yeah.
from our members.
Yeah.
And I think having actual examples of what hardships these cuts are going to cause are going to be very important. That's one
Yeah.
thing we can do. And the other thing about it is that there are only a tiny handful of us here, and there are 8,000 council workers. So having a working group might just be a way of bringing some more people in.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
But it's not about separating us off from anything else.
No.
Quite the contrary.
So, yeah.
Can I just say very quickly, and this is a bit of a wider point, I noticed that the people here are quite often the people that I see at practically every other event, whether it's trades council, whether it's political meetings. And it's an awful lot, as Holly said earlier, there's a lot of an onslaught of stuff coming around. And I know that I felt last year pretty stressed with all the things I was trying to do. So to reach out to other members of your family, your friends, your work colleagues, is actually a positive, because we can't do this on our own.
So, what we're going to do is, we're going to create some working groups, and those people are going to come up with ideas for actions focused on the budget meeting, 27th of February. And then we're going to have a report back to a meeting, a planning meeting for that action in January at some point. And I'm not suggesting we try and find a date for that now, but that the People's Assembly should go away and come up with a date and book a venue, and we'll publicise it widely. Does that sound acceptable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little
Yeah.
thing. It's 14th of December. People's Assembly is saying to people, go out, have another action day. It doesn't have to be a day of civil disobedience. Can be if you fancy it. We're going through Lewisham, for an example, changing the words to Christmas carols, getting people involved in singing, handing out some bits of information, inviting more people along to our next local People's Assembly meeting. You could have perhaps copies of the letter that's on the website about contacting your councillors and lobbying and drawing them in and getting them invited to the next meeting, people who've not been to a People's Assembly meeting before, and lots of dressing up and fun. Maybe.
Okay. I want to go and talk to the members of the public working group, but so I suggest we close this kind of plenary session.
Thanks very much for chairing.
There is just a few announcements. There is a strike day on Tuesday. The university and colleges are on strike on Tuesday, and there'll be a march through town starting at 12:30. And we have called a meeting to coordinate between trade unionists and anti-cuts activists in the town generally next Sunday. So if anyone's interested in getting involved in that, then that's 4 o'clock at the Quadrant Pub.
4 o'clock where?
At